Good morning, everybody. Welcome to panel 6. Here we're going to be looking at the topic of growing township economies. In particular, we're looking at the skills, there's a key opportunity for skills and for youth employment. On my panel today, I've got Ganesh Rasagam. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. And yes, Ganesh is the lead private sector specialist for the World Bank. And I've also got McKevin Ayaba. McKevin is the founder and chief executive officer of Set Up a Startup. Myself, my name is Tendai Majude. I'm the chief operations officer at MLab. And I guess today, as we said, before I get my panel members to be able to engage and really unpack this topic around, the township economies, how can we really look at growing it and also taking it from a manufacturing kind of context, what kind of things can be done in terms of creating employment for youth in the manufacturing sector in the townships, as well as really looking at are there any skills gaps? If there are, how can we bridge them? How do we make this this sector or this market really bring about economic vibrancy and make a difference to the lives of the young people of South Africa as well as the broader economy? As we all are aware, it's not only just in South Africa. A lot of South African countries are experiencing GDP contraction, and with this being exacerbated by COVID in particular, this has really accelerated that there's a lot of companies that are closing, some people are not recruiting, and this really makes it a very difficult situation for young people in South Africa, with 1 in 3 young people being unemployed. I don't know if this stat, is probably even more pronounced in the township economies. And then, once we have this situation where young people are unemployed, but yet the people that are recruiting or employing are potentially saying that there's a lack of skills out there. And, it's like, how do we bridge these gaps? Like, there's so many people who are saying that they're ready, wanting work, and yet, there seems to be a disparity. So maybe to get the conversation going, I would maybe want to ask Ganesh, when we talk about youth unemployment, why is it that, there's a lot of stress around why is addressing youth unemployment so critical, and more so, especially in the township economies? I don't know, from a World Bank perspective, you may kind of know from a global kind of coming down into a micro level, how that all impacts and plays out. Oh, I'm sorry, before I let you speak, maybe let me just introduce Ganesh and give him a proper introduction. So Ganesh is currently the lead private sector specialist at the World Bank, based in Pretoria. And this is since February 2020. Prior to this, he was based at the World Bank HQ in Washington, DC, where he led both the regional and the global teams as a practice manager for finance, competitiveness, and innovation for the East Asia and Pacific region. Global practice manager for InfoDev as well, and which is a World Bank other program, and global practice manager for innovation and entrepreneurship for the trade and competitiveness global practice. So someone who you clearly got to, work in the Americas to the Asian markets and, the African markets, and, really with a kind of a perspective and lens from finance. And, your input would be greatly appreciated. Over to you, Ganesh.
Thank you very much, Tendai, for that kind introduction. And first of all, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you to Manufacturing Endeavor for inviting me to be on this panel. I'm very pleased also to have McKevin Ayaba as a co-panelist in this session. So let me maybe start with some numbers to put this conversation in perspective. So if you look at the latest labor force survey for South Africa, which is the Q2, for 2021, which is up to June this year, we have a total of 9.1 million people in South Africa between the ages of 15 and 34 who are unemployed, who are not in education or training, and who are not economically active. Now, that's a huge number, 9.1 million. That is a population of entire countries, if you look at global population. And this is people who are at the prime of their life, 15 to 34, young people. Many of them, most of them live in townships. And this is the target group that we're talking about today. Now, just to give a little bit more color to this number, of this 9.1 million young people, 2 million of them have actually given up looking for jobs. They're what we call discouraged job seekers. So they have tried hard looking for work and they've just sort of given up. That's 2 million people. And more likely, women are the ones who are not, more women are likely to be not economically active compared to men. So that's the other factor to bear in mind. There's a gender imbalance in terms of the unemployment. Now, what does this tell us? What tells us is that the problem is huge. The problem is structural, and there are no easy solutions or quick fixes. So this requires innovative thinking and new approaches to approach these young people, and how can we work together with them to find solutions going forward. So that's one question I'm framing for this discussion. The second part of it, which is really important to understand, is the skills and education aspect of this problem. So going back to the number which I just gave you, 9.1 million, 6 million of the 9.1 million did not complete secondary education, meaning they dropped out of school. So why did they drop out of school? Why couldn't the school system retain them and give them a basic education that will prepare them for the workforce better? So that's one policy question to grapple with. And the other side of the equation is that 10% of unemployed youth in South Africa today actually have tertiary education. 10%. So these are people who have invested. They invested family savings and lives, their time and energy for tertiary education, and yet they cannot get a job. So that leads me to the next point, and I'm going to pause after this for the discussion, is the importance of self-employment for these young people, because clearly the economy is not creating all these jobs for these people. So the role of self-employment. Now, if you look at South Africa is a upper middle income country, and if you look at South Africa, and compare South Africa with other peer countries, upper middle income countries, the level of self-employment should be about 30%. In South Africa, it's only about 10% now. So there's a 20% gap of self-employment that needs to be filled. And that is the opportunity. How can we create opportunities for young people to set up their own small businesses, give them the support for them to earn a living and build a career. So let me pause here and we can come back to this later. I want to hear from Kevin as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Ganesh. I don't know if McKevin, if you want to have any input on this, but maybe let me just introduce you first and then allow you to also maybe comment, and then I may then proceed to ask Ganesh any other further follow-up questions, because I think it's really interesting, some of the stats that you're bringing out there, and you could want to listen and hear more and more, but yeah, let's have it as a bit more of a discussion. McKevin, as I earlier said, is the founder and chief executive officer of Set Up a Startup. He has many accolades, from other than he's a catalyst for Africa's economic development, innovation economy strategist. He's a systems thinker. He's a leader, speaker. He's been a mentor to many startups, a judge on many startup panels. And he's someone who identifies as a humanitarian amongst also being the kind of the Global Startup Awards brand ambassador within the Southern African region. So he's also been named the Global Goodwill Ambassador in 2018 and named top 500 African doers by Tropics Magazine in 2019. Finally, he was appointed as a World Business Angel Investment Forum international partner for South Africa in 2020, and Mzizi Yangu Africa magazine cover this year. So, many accolades there to your name, Kevin. But, as we were having this discussion, I think Ganesh has mentioned that, 9.1 million youth are unemployed, that there are, a lot of them, 6 million of those don't have any formal, don't have matric is my interpretation of maybe, they dropped out of school, and, and 2 million are discouraged, and almost have given up. What is your take on thoughts around this topic in terms of, why is this happening? Is there, where is there, is there something around the skills, and how can we address the issues that could potentially exist in these township economies? Why are people dropping out? And, what is it that could be done, if there is something that could be done? I think Ganesh acknowledged that there's no easy solution, but sometimes it's starting to have the conversations or the difficult chats around, is it the education system? Is it policy? Is it, multiple other factors?
Thank you so very much, Tendai, for the introduction. Thank you, Ganesh, for joining us at this important day. Thank you, Indaba Manufacturing, for inviting us to really speak on a township economy and the youth, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. As we all know, we have about 75% of Africa is made of youth. And again, that goes as well as above our 60% of South Africa as well are made of youth. The township economy and entrepreneurship as a whole is the driving force of any economy. And Ganesh is right. It's really scary. It's scary to the amount that the number that he mentioned regarding what is happening within our township, what is happening within our economy, what is happening within our youth. I strongly believe, and that's something that we've been advocating, and that's why we have our organization set up. It means start something, just set up something, and we will provide the resources that you need to take that something to the next level. Entrepreneurship education is key. I'm not saying that our education system has failed us, but I think that it is it's never too late to look at how our educational system should be structured. I think the structure within African education system as a whole, not with South Africa including, has not taught our youth, our children, about how to be entrepreneurial, how to be innovative, how to be creative, how to think out of the box, how to imagine, how to be curious. And if we don't have that type of mindset, then then this number that Ganesh has mentioned would not change. It would increase. It would increase every single day, especially looking at the fourth industrial revolution. We've seen that happening within what has happened, what the COVID has taught us. The COVID has taught us that, we are going worse and worse. It has proven what Ganesh has said. So we need to look back into our educational system, into our educational structure. What are we teaching our children? Can we implement, can we start bringing the entrepreneurship education as a fundamental to our education, starting from, for me, secondary school, going to high school, and then picking up with universities and going forward. We lack programs within the economy, within the township, or within our communities that equip, that capacitate entrepreneurs. You have a lot of, we can't really, if we look at South Africa, there are just so many graduates that have graduated and who have no job. And for them to start integrating into the entrepreneurial mindset, it now starts becoming difficult. They start questioning why we went to school in the first place to be biochemists, to do geography, to do language, to do all this. But if we start involving entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial education right from the beginning of our curriculum, then it's critical. We talked earlier on, you asked about the gap. There are just so many gaps within the township economy. The biggest gap is artisan. What do we mean by artisan? We talk about people who can make things, by hand, the creative sector. Those who can work within the mining communities. We've seen so many mining companies, in our various communities that don't even recruit our youths, don't even recruit those who are because they don't have the mindset, they don't have that training, they are not capacitated to do those jobs. It makes it very critical. So we need to start having critical skills development, critical programs that capacitate the youth. Even these school dropouts, they still have a place in our society. There are still vocational programs that need to be implemented. The truth is, as much as we say these programs are there, let's be brutally honest, we want to equip our country. It is not intentional. It is not intentional. It has to be intentional. It has to focus on the youth. It has to bring out the impact of those programs. We talk about, we talked earlier on about my clothes, about my dress, that how can we put it within the economy? We don't find designers like this we find very few of them like this within the township. And most of these are supposed to be done within the township, being able to come up with new ideas, how to bring South African culture and art, to people wearing them, designing this clothes, sewing these shoes, coming with so many shoes within our culture and the context. But do they have the right training? No. They don't. Do they have the right programs? No. We don't. We keep reinventing the wheels instead of looking at what is already there and see how everyone can support. Another skill shortage that we have within our economy is nurses and doctors, and then even teachers. We have these nurses that have managed to have this diploma. They leave the country and go into places like Finland, Australia, New Zealand to look for better opportunities. But we need, why is it that? It's because we need to start combating the crime and the abuse of our women in our society. We need to create a secure environment within our community, within our township for people to strive. And which means that the government needs to put in measures for security to take place. It's difficult for someone to work in an environment where they work, every time they're walking, they're looking behind their back. They are scared whether this person that is coming behind them could harm them, or the person that's coming in front of them could harm them. If the security system is not in place, there is no way that we are going to build that township economy that we are looking for. There's no way we are going to those that have managed to acquire some knowledge, whether nursing or doctors, will be able to stay within our economy. We have another issue from the gaps is teachers, right? These teachers have this knowledge, but what skills do they possess? Can we make sure that our teachers and our environment start having this entrepreneurial mindset as well? Or not only teaching our students or not teaching our people how to be biologists, but teaching them, if you are in that field of biology, what else can you learn? Can you think out of the box? Can you be curious? Can you be more creative? Can you be more intentional? Can you look at, what if I do not have I graduate, I don't have a job? Can I use this knowledge to be able to create one? So these are all shortage of skills that we need to address, and the government need to play a critical role. I'm not saying that they are not doing it, but the truth is, the truth is that the people that they are convening or giving them this opportunity to help this youth are not intentional. They are not for the entrepreneurs. They are not for the youth. It's people, these are people that care about themselves more than the economy. Funding go through this, but they don't go to the right people who really care about our community. They don't really care about our township. They don't really care about developing the skills. There are no proper programs in place that caters for all of that. And these are some of the conversations that we need to start pushing. Entrepreneurship education should be the fundamentals of our educational system. From us as set up a startup, we don't just talk about it. We have proven it. We've developed programs that all we just need is to implement within our local community, schools, and incubator going forward.
All right. No, thank you, McKevin. That's really passionate. And I feel there's a lot of value there. And I'm going to come back to you maybe to explain what set up a startup is all about and how, we could look at embedding entrepreneurship training early on in the education system, as you're saying. But maybe if I could also then go back to Ganesh. And I mean, I think this, whether we call it entrepreneurship or self-employment, I think, there's a reoccurring theme here around empowering the youth within the townships to be able to kind of, create financial generating opportunities for themselves, right? And I don't know, within your work, have you come across any examples or any instances where this is happening? Because I think a lot of people keep on saying, that government should do this or etc. But I've of the notion that there's probably a blend that is required between government and private sector. Everybody needs to come to the table. But how can we actually look at kind of driving this self-employment opportunities that you touched on, and or any case examples that you may be familiar with from the work that you've been doing?
Thank you, Tendai. Let me maybe share my thoughts on three themes, which I think are really important when we think of new economic opportunities in townships going forward. I think the first is to tap the power of digital transformation. I think that gives us an opportunity to, for want of a better term, let me use this word, democratize the township economies more. Now, what do I mean by saying that? If you can use digital platforms, leverage digital platforms, digital tools, digital processes, that will give township youth the skills, digital skills, to benefit from the digital economy. I mean, let me give you specific examples. So if you can have, for example, service delivery in townships that are digitized, you can have drones for security services, for example. You can have digital platforms to deliver educational programs for young people in schools. So you can tap all that power of digital tools and systems to reach township young people, even in schools. And as McKevin has said very eloquently, it's about the skills and the knowledge and the education which can be delivered better, more efficiently and more effectively through digital platforms, right? So that's one. How do we equip township young people with skills, digital literacy? And this means that even people who have not completed secondary education can be trained to be part of the digital economy, right? But then you have opportunities in things like being part of the business process outsourcing value chain. Even part of manufacturing value chains can be in townships. Part of the retail trade can be through township platforms, and so on. So it's to create a township economy through technological disruption, right? So that's the first point. The second point is infrastructure, and this is where government comes in. So a lot of the startups can actually play a role in townships, in providing affordable and quality broadband access I mean, right now, if you are in a township, if we have this challenge of power supply disruptions in the cities, but how about the townships, right? How can you run a business if you don't have power? You can't afford to pay for internet access because it's expensive and unreliable, right? So this basic infrastructure has to be in place, and it's a role for startups to come in and provide these services in partnership with government. So infrastructure investments, creating opportunities again for startups and entrepreneurs to enter this space and provide these services in townships, which is important to achieve the first agenda of digital transformation. The third part of this is finance. Now, if you look at the self-employment agenda, the amount of funding that's required for these young entrepreneurs is very small. I mean, no bank will want to be in this space, right? Banks don't do that. They don't lend you, tens of thousands of rand to start your business. Then you have no collateral, you have no assets, you have no track record, you have no business, you have no cash flow. So you need innovative financing tools, right? And here again, there are digital opportunities. You can have peer-to-peer lending platforms, crowdfunding platforms, microfinance in townships using digital platforms. Huge opportunities. Again, innovation, startups, entrepreneurs in that space should be active in townships. So there's a whole rich agenda that is there. And how do we put it together? How do we leverage the power of the private sector, civil society, and government, and work in participation with the township community? This has to be anchored within the community. This can't be transplanted from somewhere into the township, right? So how do we organize that? I think, and there are people who are doing that quite well already, and there are lessons to be learned from that. So let me just pause here for now, Tendai. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much, Ganesh. And I had the pleasure, I think previously before I was with MLab, I worked with the World Bank as well. And the World Bank has always sponsored and supported, let's say, the organizations, nonprofits such as MLab. And everything that you're saying really resonates around the digital economy, that's where the World Bank set up different MLabs across the world. And there's skills development programs where, we're training young unemployed youth how to develop digital solutions. And a lot of this is happening in the townships and in the rural provincial locations. You talked about finance, that, we need funding instruments and startup support that also supports the early stage entrepreneur. I think Yoko did a report and saying that a lot of startups don't actually need more than 50,000 rands, right, to really get up and going. And if we're able to create funnel opportunities where people are able to access those smaller loans, I think a lot could happen. And as you said, also the infrastructure. But maybe I know I'm just conscious of time as well. But, McKevin, I would also just wanted to, I said I'd come back to you to find out about, what kind of skills initiatives, because I think there are a lot of organizations and, you as well have been very active in this ecosystem. You talked about the opportunity for manufacturing clothes. I think you're very creative when it comes to African garments. On our panel as well, we've also got Temba Makamo, who's the founder and CEO of Via Footwear. And he's also going to tell us from a manufacturing point of view how it has been for him in terms of creating opportunities for young people in the township economy. But just thought to pick your brain, just final thoughts around the skills kind of initiatives around entrepreneurship. What is it that you've been doing, and what is it that you've been seeing happening in this space from a set up a startup perspective?
Whether I would like it or not, the digital ecosystem have come to stay. It's not going anywhere. Whether we cannot avoid it. Innovation and the digital space is the way forward. And I keep saying every single day that entrepreneurship is the life and the only way if we need to eradicate poverty. I will go back to the same point. I will keep saying that skills development is critical. But what kind of skills? What kind of skills development? What type of programs? We need to encourage youth, even those dropouts, to undertake also the responsibility of creating a job. We need to accept that building or creating jobs or building a company is not a day job. It's not a 1 year. It requires patience, requires persistence, requires passion to actually create a sustainable organization. It means that we need to put the processes in place. As for startup, we've been doing that for that. We've been creating events, we've been creating programs, we've been developing summit. We launched the Southern Africa Startup Award, which brought over, connected a lot of South Africans to a lot of opportunity to investors. We've now launched our investment readiness program, which is like a startup school, which deals with three phases of the entrepreneurship ecosystem. Which one is encouraging entrepreneurs, then teaching them how to generate idea, how to start, and how to grow their businesses. With this platform does not only help entrepreneurs, but it also connect entrepreneurs with investment firms. There is no way we can build businesses like you said, 50,000 rand, or they need to support entrepreneurs. There's no way we can build business we can't scale them. Then also it's not. We need to make sure that any startup or any entrepreneur that wants to start a business, they should be able to scale. And to scale this business, they need to undertake, they need to be ready. I say it all the time. Success is only when investment is when opportunity meets readiness. If you are not ready, and then opportunity would pass away. We understand that the government and other private sector are trying to support entrepreneurs. But at the same time, the entrepreneur themselves needs to know that it takes time to build a business. They need to prepare that mindset. We need to tell them the truth, because I think one of the things that we don't do as ecosystem builders, that we are not honest. Sometimes we're not honest with them. We just tell them that this program that we develop will take you 1 year, and then boom, you build that successful business. It's not true. If they are not resilient, if they are not passionate, if they are not focused, if they are not patient, they won't build it. So everything requires a process, and that's what Startup have done with our program called IRP Africa, which gives you a step-by-step life cycle of entrepreneurship, from you understanding how to start a business, for you understanding how to put together a team for that business, for you understanding how you can build that minimum viable product or that service that you are delivering out there, on to getting to the point where you understand how to present that, build that confidence. Because most entrepreneurs don't even know how to sell themselves. I think that most of them don't even know how to sell it. So something that is their product, if you ask them to sell it, they don't know. And not because they can't, but because they just need some education around it. No one is perfect. We learn each and every single day. As much as we speak here, we are not experts. We keep on learning. So one thing we need to do is that entrepreneurs need to read. They need to learn the processes on how to build a business. They must understand the life cycle of how to build a business. Another thing that is out there where Ganesh was mentioning is, drones and all that. But another thing that we also have here is robotics. There are different ways of doing, using robotic system. We have young guys that are doing some of within the township, training young kids on how to build things, and they don't have to be high school graduate. They don't have to be university graduate. We need to take all this to the township. I saw CEDA is trying to do some work with creating incubators or into township right now. But one thing we need to build more is centers for internet connectivity. Center for internet connectivity, make sure that every community around have a free center where they can have access to internet. Because if you look at our program is online. It can also be done face-to-face. It means that we want to reach as many South Africans and many Africans as much as we can, but we cannot reach if they don't have internet connectivity. I wrote a post on my Facebook. I made a post this morning about load shedding. Load shedding has contributed to a lot of unemployment in South Africa. I can't imagine. I'm so disappointed that since 2014, South Africa has not been able to resolve the issue of load shedding. Imagine today we don't have all our speakers in one place because of load shedding. Look at the last 2 years that everything has gone online and digital. We cannot connect to do business. How is business going to function if you can't resolve load shedding? Then we will continue to have this issue. And this is a very disappointing part of the government. We cannot afford to allow our youth to struggle. Township is even worse. Township is even worse, where a little bit of electricity, without electricity, they can't sell anything. They want to preserve, if they're making some food and their light goes up, that food is bad. How do you expect them to recover from the food that is not refrigerated? And the truth is, how much government cannot even compensate for that? Even if they have to do, how many are they going to do? Do we have that budget? So the first thing first is the tools and the basic resources that entrepreneurs need, which is electricity, which is water, which is energy. And we are struggling with that. We need a township. There's something there about the recycling space right now. We need to create more recycling opportunity within the township, more green economy within the town, because that's where it also gives opportunity for employment. So startup is key. Entrepreneurship foundation is key to our economy. We need to encourage it, but we need to be honest that ecosystem builders like you, myself, like you and myself, like MLab, who are doing extraordinary work in supporting entrepreneurs. We need to have the opportunity to have some of the support as well, because the difficult thing is that if we don't have the support, even though with our right intention, we can't bring this program live into the township. And this is what we need. We need to take these programs that we've developed into the townships so that they can have access, rather than making sure that they keep coming to town, which they struggle from transportation perspective, they struggle from everything else. So we need to take this program to them, whether it's digitally or whether it's face-to-face, but we need also that support. So we need to start having support from the government, have support from the corporate, also from the world body that want to support entrepreneurs. South Africa has suffered a lot from the apartheid. We can't deny that. No matter what happened, we can't deny that the apartheid has put, especially our educational system, into a strong turmoil. We need for us to do that. Even 20 years is not enough for us to come out of that. But I think that, like I said earlier on in my opening, it's not too late to start looking at the educational system, to start looking at the entrepreneurial mindset that we need to put within our education system in South Africa. That is key, and that's what Set Up a Startup has been doing. We've developed this platform that speaks to that speaks to incubation program. Another thing that we also argue is that as much as we have this incubation program, the acceleration program, they do not have all the right program that talks to entrepreneurs, that speaks to them. We still find entrepreneurs go into an incubation program and spend 12 months and come out of it with nothing. That is painful. That is painful. How can you spend 12 months in a program and come out without an MVP, come out with nothing? That is a waste of time and waste of government resources and waste of entrepreneurial time. So we need to develop program that speaks, and that's some of the things that some of our organization has managed to do. We have a fragmented ecosystem. We don't collaborate. We don't partner. We are so much into competition, and there is no way if we are competing and want each other we will be able to build that township economy that we need. All of us need together, stop competing, but start more looking into a more partnership and collaboration to make sure that our community moves.
Thank you so much, McKevin. No, yeah, very passionate and I think a lot of key points there. And there's a lot of synergy between what the points you're raising and what Ganesh is saying. So I feel that a lot of ecosystem players are on the same page and are speaking the same language. And I guess it's now about the implementation of these things. I mean, here we are at the manufacturing in Daba. And, it's very interesting that, how the economy is all interconnected. And, we've got to focus around, promoting manufacturing, but to realize that to promote manufacturing, and we need to look downstream. And I think the reoccurring thing is around education, the infrastructure, all of the different things that you've mentioned, right? And I think there is great work and opportunities. And I think will also be good to hear from our other panel members we're just about to get into having a representative from Siemens, Tibad, as well, who will be able to kind of advise us on what it is that they've been doing. I forgot to mention earlier on that in the chat section, for those of you that are watching online, if you're not going through load shedding at the moment, please feel free to ask any questions. If anything resonated with you, feel free to drop it in the chat section, and our panel members will be able to kind of respond to that as well. And, if there's any follow-ups that you want to make. But I'm just conscious for time. And so if I could just ask, I'm not going to lead the conversation, but just say, in 1 minute, in 60 seconds, just your final remarks, from Ganesh and from McKevin. So I would start off with McKevin, and then I'll end with Ganesh, if that's okay. And I just wanted to say, if you were to sum up, so this topic or whatever it is, what are your final thoughts, or what is it that we weren't able to cover in 60 seconds?
Thank you, Tendai. Again, thanks the manufacturing industry. They're doing amazing work and to bring us together. Ganesh, thanks. It's a pleasure connecting with you. Quite some knowledge there. For us, we need to build an inclusive economy. We need to make sure that entrepreneurship is accessible to each and everyone, and that's what we've been trying to do from as set up a startup. The government needs to intervene with making sure that gender violence is really, really limited. We need to make sure that our community is safe, our society is safe, is free, women can walk freely, anybody can walk freely within our community, and everyone has access to information. If with that proper access to information, trust me, we're not going to build the kind of economy that we want to build. We should make sure that we should understand that the youth are the backbone of our economy. They contribute 70 to 75% of economy. Entrepreneurship or small and medium-sized businesses, the township is huge. We need to take programs, the right program, good programs, through to the township. The government and other bodies need to support ecosystem builders that are intentional. They need to open, if they're open for funding, but then they need to open to each and everyone and make sure that I really look into what each and everyone is doing. If we can have an inclusive, if we can have good security, if we can fight gender violence, if we can't look at entrepreneurship being the fundamentals of our education, starting from secondary school, high school, universities, then we are the wrong side of history. To close this, collaboration is key to building our township economy and to building our entrepreneurship ecosystem across South Africa and the rest of the continent. Otherwise, thank you from my side. Thank you, Manufacturing Daba, for inviting me. I look forward to supporting the youth. You can connect with us through our website or find me, McKevin Ariaba, ever on social media. I am always available to see how I can support in any way that I can.
Thanks, McKevin. I'm sure you'll also just drop your details on the chat section so that those that want to get in touch with you can do so. Ganesh, your final thoughts and inputs around, this discussion has been very dynamic, and I think a lot of points been raised. What is your, outlook, or what's the silver lining for you with all of this that has been discussed?
No, thank you. This has been a very nice conversation. Very enriching for me, and I'm learning from McKevin and yourself. I think let me sort of put this in a way that is so there's a lot of resources being deployed already in Township. We're not starting from zero. There are lots of organizations funding Township entrepreneurship and Township economic growth. The question is, what do we know in terms of what is working and what is not working? So I think the power of learning, measurement, monitoring and evaluation, experimentation is important to tap when we talk about Township economic growth, because there's no silver bullet. So we have to learn from each other. We have to scale things that are working well and shut down things that are not working, and be honest and transparent about managing this sort of challenges. That's my 1 minute summary. Thank you.
Awesome, very succinct and very powerful. Thank you so much. Monitoring and evaluation, it's critical for us to also reflect and look back at, what's been working, what's not working, improve, and if need be, stop certain things and, refocus those efforts and energies. But no, thank you very much, gentlemen. And, really appreciate your inputs, your insights. And, I do think that the future is, we've been in a dark place at the moment in terms of the 9.1 million youth that are, unemployed. But I do think, as Ganesh said, that there's a lot that is happening, and it's about leveraging off this and, really building to try get some momentum. As McKevin said, it's about the different ecosystem players coming together and starting to work together instead of, against each other, and really providing that value and that runway for young people to be able to get all of the support they need to excel. But for me, thank you very much. And we're doing this in 2 sessions. And so we're going to also now have our other panel members, chip into the conversation. Thanks to the previous panel members that we had, Ganesh and McKevin. Now we have, I'm going to, been really practicing trying to pronounce this name, and then I may ask him to pronounce it himself, but it's Tibu Shwalame. He's and there we go. I think I got it 60% probably. But he's a sales director for Siemens, and he's going to talk to us a little bit around some of the initiatives that he has been pioneering or championing in terms of trying to address youth unemployment in the manufacturing space within the townships of South Africa, because I think we do need to look at what opportunities really exist for young people, for women in particular, that I think Ganesh had mentioned that a lot of women are feeling very, like discouraged and are no longer really even seeking employment opportunities. To try bring some light to this topic, we have Tibu, who will, I will just introduce him in his personal capacity, and then he can then speak on what it is that they're currently doing. So Tibu has been over the last 10 years working as a sales director in the Africa for the Siemens Group, and he's developed a passion for the continent. Hence this kind of citizen initiative that he's going to be talking to us about. And he's decided to develop in close collaboration with South African partners, a holistic approach to township townships, developing sustainable socioeconomic development programs within the townships. Tibu, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So indeed, this is a holistic approach. This is based on the citizen approach that we agreed with the community of Cliptown, Soweto, to work together in order to develop a sustainable socioeconomic approach with a big impact. This is why we have decided to make it holistic, because we want to touch all the sectors of a real economy, starting from the infrastructure, water, housing, electricity, waste management, and so on and so forth. But as well, we want to develop through a lifetime project, meaning that we will die with this project and new people will take over this project after a couple of decades in order that we make this a real continuation and sustainable approach. We start with this year, in fact, with 3 main projects around transportation, tourism, and electricity, where we dedicate ourselves to train people to become professional on those 3 sectors. And in parallel, we discuss with the private sector in search of competencies on the 3 areas to hire people. Out of the 3 sectors, we have a focus on women, transportation, and tourism. And we want to place women at the center of this initiative so that we can ensure as far as possible a real gender-based approach, integrating everybody. So it's become an inclusive and an inclusive project, integrating all the elements for the sustainable economy. In 1 year, we target to invest into infrastructure such as electricity, housing, water, and waste management. And then in 3 years' time, we target to initiate new entrepreneurial activities on every sector. Yeah, so on the transportation sector, we're working with an organization having the financing to train women to become truck drivers. Okay, and we are now just initiating the identification of the right profile from the women of Cliptown and the suburbs of Cliptown to have those women matching the criteria and starting the training as fast as possible. Okay, so this is one. Regarding electricity, we are discussing with Siemens and the Tibet University of Soweto to develop a vocational training program around electricity competencies. Okay, and the idea is same, that we develop a networking with the private sector in search of competencies for electrical engineers. And last but not least, on tourism, we are working with an organization in order to train women to become professional on the tourism activity. And we already have partners in touch with the tourism industry to be properly trained and come back in South Africa with a job as well. Okay, so it's the kickoff of our activity, and we are connected through the rest of the world. So we do not only connect in South Africa. We are developing a worldwide network in Europe, Africa, and USA in order to work with professionals and partners who can bring the best of the state of the art of the technologies and everything directly to the townships. Okay, and we're gonna develop as well a platform, communication platform around the world to identify citizen and private and public partners to finance our approach on a long-term basis.
Right. I like how there's a lot of sustainability thinking.
Sorry,
behind...
Tendai, I cannot hear you.
Okay. If I speak louder, does that help at all?
Maybe you should unmute. I cannot hear you. I'm very sorry.
You can't hear me at all.
I know I can hear you, yes.
Okay. All right. Awesome. No, I was just saying I like how you've including quite a lot of bit of sustainability into the project already, and you're bringing in multiple partners, whether they be from private sector as well as potentially some public sector, I'm assuming, to make sure that there's some longevity. But maybe what I could ask you, or in terms of these kind of three pillars that you're looking at, providing skills training for, as well as potential jobs. How many are you looking at training in the upcoming years? Like, so I think you said in Soweto is where you're piloting this. How many people are you looking at training maybe in the transport space, let alone tourism and electrical?
Look, we both want to be realistic and also having some ambition. So we are both ambitious and realistic. But the reality pushes us to be to go really step by step, because it's not only that we want to bring the best to the people, but we need to ensure that we scale those people who want to get access to the training with the proper criteria. So we will need also to fill the gap that are existing between one candidate, whether it's a girl or boy, women or men, needing a matrix, we need a code, we need some additional competence in English, in written, etc., etc. Until the moment those persons can qualify to the real training, okay? Because it's really a matter for us to ensure that if we want it to be sustainable, those people must fulfill all the criteria. If you talk about the transportation, for example, we must work with women having their metric and at least a minimum of code for the driving license. There are many more criteria that are needed from the private sector to make it happen. And our job will be also to develop some partnership on the education sector so that we bring what is missing to those people in order for them to get an entry door to the private market. So in terms of transport, we have a target of 150, but honestly, this would be not professional for me to say that we can get all of those 150 candidates in 1 year. In fact, the reality will tell us how long it will take. It will take 3 years, maybe it will take 5 years, maybe it will take more, less, I don't know. We are now jumping from our theoretical and partnership approach into the reality of the townships. And then we will see after a year how we can project ourselves in terms of how many people we can train and for how many time, for how long.
Thanks for that.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think it sounds like you're reiterating, I mean, because when we are having a kind of a chat offline, you were alluding that this is kind of, it's a lifelong project, and you're looking at essentially, you're wanting to create jobs, right, to get people into employment. But the way you're going about it is that you're saying that you've identified that there's some skills gaps, and so people are needing to get trained first and foremost. Yes. So it's the education element that needs to be addressed here.
Okay? Exactly. In fact, there is what we want and there is what we can. Between what we want and what we can, there's a huge difference. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we can be very ambitious. This is what we want. But then we will face the challenge of such candidate will need to repass his metrics, or such candidate will need to repass her or his code driving license, and so on and so forth. So each and every time we identify a gap, we will collaborate with the proper educational entity so that at the end we fill those gaps and we bring a sustainable approach, and we bring to the private market candidates that will be there for a long time. Okay, because a job must be for a long time. It's not her for this. Okay, we brought you a candidate now. You deal with them, and it's not anymore our problem. No, it is our problem because our target is really to be sustainable.
All right. So I mean, I think that does make a lot of sense. And I guess it is a reoccurring theme, from our previous speakers and now from yourself, in terms of in order for this to be sustainable, we really need to look at addressing the educational gap. And, I think Ganesh mentioned stats around, 6 million or so don't have the matric, of the young people who are unemployed don't have matric.
That's it.
Yeah,
yes.
And so there's high dropout rates, and but maybe these kind of vocational trainings, working with TVET colleges, as you said, that you're doing in Soweto for like the electrical training and the like, and finding the right partners, I think, is the key to kind of address all of this.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the demand, like the job creations, from somebody who's maybe trying to broker this, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing, or some of the issues that are being raised by employers? Is there anything else in addition to skills, or are there different types of skill gap? What is it that if you're a young person in the township, they're saying that there aren't jobs there, and yet sometimes when you talk to industry is saying that there are jobs, but we're not seeing the right skills. Like, how do we bridge that divide? And what are you finding in your engagements with potential employers?
I think the first challenge for us is to understand why the people from the townships are capable of. In fact, the problem is that they don't even know for themselves what they want and what would be their dream, because their only challenge is what am I going to do in the next 2 hours or 3 hours, because I cannot anticipate any agenda, because I'm just striving to have food and drinks. Okay, this is basically the first challenge. So what we must do is to bring from the private sector and the public sector what are the needs, and then to communicate to the townships. Look, the private sector is looking for competence A, B, C, D, F. What would you be as a citizen from the township willing to do? Okay, do you have already a competence, but that competence is not having a diploma, but you can do that competence. You just need a diploma and a stamp that you can enter into the private. So we must confront the private sector, the demand from the market to the people. And for this, we need to bring the private sector directly in the township, because those people from the township, they don't have transport, they don't have phone to understand what is happening outside the township. They are extremely isolated from the rest of the world. So how can they understand for themselves what they need, what they like, what they want, if they don't know what is happening outside? So it is our duty, to my point of view, to bring the private sector to them and to engage a face-to-face discussion, and not only once, but maybe every week or every month, I don't know, It's really a matter of community approach. And this is why we must go holistic, because if you only address one need from only one sector, then you miss something very important. You miss the inclusivity of what needs the society to develop. And I think this is what the township needs. They need to understand what can they offer and what versus what is required. Okay. And then they can hope, they can build, they can say, this is my plan for myself. I can commit myself. I can say, look, if I want to get this job, I need within the next 5 years to do A, B, C, and D. And some people will help me to do this.
I hear you. All right. Yeah. So I guess you're saying, sometimes bread and butter issues make it a bit of a challenge when you're in the townships to be able to kind of transcend and be able to look into the longer term strategy of how does one get employment. But what I'm getting from you is that as part of that strategy of how to get employment is that employment should be for a long time, and hence for it to be for a long time, people almost there's a lot of input that you have to put in before you get a job. So engaging with potential employers, really understanding what are they looking for, what are their needs, how does one upskill themselves and better themselves to be able to deliver on those requirements.
That's
So
it.
what about on the?
We need to bring the private sector to the townships, because the reverse is not possible.
I hear you. Yeah, no, and I guess that speaks to kind of a need for developing infrastructure, but maybe before infrastructure is having engagements, workshops, etc., and having the private sector coming to the townships, engaging with the youth and saying, what are the kind of the 1 year to 3 year plans, and people can work around those. What are your views in terms of entrepreneurship then? Like, because I guess in the meantime, then somebody still needs to put food on the table, needs to sustain themselves, but they also need to develop and enhance their own skills. Are there any initiatives or things that you're aware of where that's helping with like self-employment opportunities?
Look, the energy is incredible, okay, in the townships. And you find so many people, entrepreneur, and very, very young. I have met 2 guys from the township of Cliptown. They have developed their own hairdressing activity with more than between 100 and 150 customers. And look, they are working from a shack. They are working from a bloody shack, and they try to connect from what they have in order to cut hairs and do the barb and everything. And you cannot, I'm sure you can imagine, but if you would be in front of those 2 gentlemen, maybe 22 years old, you can see the entrepreneurs, you can see the leaders. They're already having a long-term plan for their business. The problem is, if you live in a township, you don't have phone and you don't have transportation. So how can you get in touch with financial partners to help you to develop? I think you can. Despite all the energy you have, you are struggling with everyday life. You're struggling with developing your business. The customers are coming, but at the end of the day, you're working in very harsh conditions, and the working conditions are not very good. So the energy, the talent, the brains are there. But again, if you don't create the sparkling by bringing the private sector into this place, those people will remain isolated, and the energies they will bring will remain very limited at the end, because it's like they will put 100% of their energy for a very low return of investment. So connect, it should not be the people to come to the private sector. It should be the reverse.
Yeah.
It should be the
and
reverse.
I mean, almost as we, just conscious of time as well, just to almost wrap it up. But I think what you're saying ties into what McKevin was also saying, one of the speakers before, in terms of that as kind of people who are in the, we call it enterprise support space, as well as kind of people who are trying to skills training within these spaces. The onus is almost on the people in these spaces to bring the different players on board, whether it's public sector, and from my own first-hand experience working with MLab, we have coding academies, as we said, in the townships, and we do this in collaboration with government. So we've got the likes of the Innovation Hub, through the ICASI labs, where we run these programs in Gauteng. And in other provincial locations, we're working with, the Northern Cape municipalities and, the Department of Economic Development and Tourism. But so there are a number of different programs that are out there. And I think young people just need to be made aware of them, and hence we'll be working with people like the presidency to bring about also platforms like Empower, where young people can see what services are around them, what government support initiatives are there, so that they can get information and be able to uplift and empower themselves. But I think what is the onus that is now on the likes of yourself, myself, and other stakeholders is now we need to work together to say, we have got private sector, public sector, you have some private sector partners, etc. How do we work together and create that value chain so that, you know, we really do change the narrative and really bring the youth into the whole digital economy?
Yeah, Tendai, I would like to add something. First of all, entrepreneur activities, you need infrastructure. So this is why we integrate the infrastructure into this. And we will, for the first time this year, develop a business center based in Cape Town. Okay, so I'm connected with some companies to bring the data, the data, internet data and voice data, so that people can speak through computer, through telephone. Okay, we have a place for this. All right, but then you need those basic infrastructure. Okay, and last but not least, you know, I am connecting myself on behalf of those people to the rest of the world. We must not be shy to address ourselves to the rest of the world, because you probably know, like me, South Africa is really have a very positive image around the world. With regard to not only Nelson Mandela's fight for the human rights, but as a country, South Africa is having a very legitimate and positive understanding from the rest of the world. And since I last year connected myself to people in USA, in Europe, and in Africa, you would be surprised how many people are now getting with us, closer to us, within this inclusive and holistic approach. It must be holistic and it must be international. And this is why we focus on Cape Town only, because we want to show that because you focus in one place and you bring all the companies driven by corporate social responsibility in one place, then you can create a real ecosystem for a long-term period. So I really have so many presentations that I could on the side send to you, and we can discuss on the side for you a better understanding. But I tell you, the story is really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's only beginning. I think there's a lot that is, but I'm glad that it's part of mainstream discussions now, and I do think it is the onus is on all of us who are listening in the chat section. I think it'll be good that if you drop your any relevant links or comments or questions, or so that we all start engaging with each other and really working to make the township's economies grow. And maybe just to conclude, we can.
Yes.
And I mean, it's a pity that we've come to the end, but we also would have we were supposed to have on this panel Eustace, who is the CEO of Proudly South African. And I think it would have been really good to also hear from him in terms of how is it that, we also get the consumers like everybody else, to support, local talent and local businesses and, really, there's a lot of activity, as you said. There's the innovators, the 22-year-olds that are in the townships that are creating and have their own market. But how do we scale that and really make them not only have presence in more than the city, the township, but across South Africa and maybe across Africa and even into other countries. And I think would have also loved to hear from Themba, who is the CEO and founder of Via Footwear, who is manufacturing footwear within the townships, and how it is that he's kind of gone about entering into this market and really starting to make waves. And so, but unfortunately, due to the challenges that we've discussed around load shedding and, all sorts of connectivity challenges, we are unfortunately unable to get everybody on board. But I do still think that there are quite a few takeaways from this discussion. And I do think, really appreciate your input and all of the other former panelists' input. And I do think that we should keep this conversation alive and, and really start bringing and enhancing each other's programs and initiatives, so that, we really create those opportunities for the youth in the township to bridge their skills gap and to gain employment, long-term employment. And if it's not employment, then it's around helping them to become more entrepreneurial and be able to grow their businesses. So I think there is a lot of work to be done, but I think it's a very exciting place that we're in, and I think that the future is very bright. And so we are grateful, and thank you all for your input.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and you have all my commitments, and it's not only me. There are so many people from Africa, Europe, willing to support. I tell you, the people from townships have a very good good support from many countries. I tell you.
Oh, awesome! No, thank you so much for that.
Pleasure.
Right, I know you're joining us from France because you just had to recently go back, yes. But thank you for making the time for this.
Yabonga Gakulu.
Yes.
Ubenempela Santo Mnandi.
I think you're able to speak better, a better vernac than I am. So we've got a mix of people from the panel, but I think it's really trying to build a better South Africa and a better Africa. Yeah.
Okay, Kushle Nyabonga.
Thank you very much.